Hey, welcome to How It's Done, a podcast for curious marketers. I'm Christy Goad. I'll be your host, and I'm really glad you're here. Today, we're talking to Jeff Coyle, who is the co-founder and chief strategy officer of MarketMuse. MarketMuse offers AI-powered content research, intelligence, and writing. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Oh, thanks for having me. Should be a great discussion.
Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to kind of talking about all things content strategy and getting into kind of artificial intelligence and
Me
be on
too.
your show. It's been a while.
Thanks for coming on. So tell us a little bit more about MarketMuse. How did it come into being? You're a co-founder. Tell us a little bit more about your background. And of course, I need to know what the heck is AI-powered content research, intelligence, and writing.
Okay, well, I'll start with the short version. So I went to school at Georgia Tech for computer science.
Go Tech.
Yeah, absolutely. But I started working in the kind of search engine space. I did usability theory as my specialization for school. I was always looking at that was when search engines was like enterprise search, right? So I was doing,
what was this?
Yeah, it was trying to figure out how to search a web page. That was, 2000, 99,
Okay.
2000. So I've been doing search and trying to figure out how to get websites to rank in whatever the active search engines were for now about 22, 23 years, which is kind of frightening.
You've been there like from the ground up.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I started working with a company called Knowledge Storm. The story makes sense of why I tell it this way, by the way,
Okay.
when you get to the end. So I started working for a company called Knowledge Storm, and we were the first company trying to get people to put content on the internet for B2B technology. So we're trying to convince, for example, IBM that content marketing is a thing. You want to get your web pages on the site. You want to get your PDFs. I mean, talking about scanning brochures so that you can generate leads with them. So at its peak, we were generating millions of leads for B2B technology companies per month. And I was managing both the product and also all the traffic, paid, organic, whatever, testing. We were acquired by a major publisher in 2007, who was also our major competitor. And I stayed on and worked for them for another 7 years and change, and almost 8 years, and grew their traffic, grew their team tremendously. But
who was that? Can you say?
Tech Target. You may be familiar. They're one of the largest publishers for B2B technology, everything from healthcare. I managed a huge communities for both personal electronics as well as healthcare and as well as B2B tech. And any piece of traffic that came through and what happened to it, whether it was conversion rate optimization, paid, organic, our team was managing. The thing I learned, though, and the reason why this is important, is because when it was just generating leads with brochureware and PDFs, you didn't have writers, you didn't have editorial. When it was an amazing publisher who also had those assets, it was, oh, wow, we're working with an editorial team. And I learned that those workflows that those writers and the subject matter experts work with are painfully manual and very subjective. But that's great in a lot of cases where you have these, experts and artists and beautiful writers and storytellers. And what the standard practice for search engine optimization professionals at the time was doing things that would actually make those people very, very unhappy and stunt their creativity. And I worked through
because you'd be like,
they would give them
16 times.
Give this pile of keywords, or we should be doing this, or we should be kind of doing a trick here or a trick there. But I always did it the right way. I was always looking at, for high quality, comprehensive content before that was a thing. And I was working on these workflows that would take forever with writers.
Why is that? Why would they take forever?
I mean, manually researching a keyword, researching a topic for comprehensiveness, trying to figure out what it means to be an expert on a topic without the expert, or interviews and very subjective measures. What should we write? You ask 5 editors on the same beat what they should write, you get 5 different answers. There was no way of doing anything with data-driven reasoning in that field. And we built out manual processes that were, just rough, but it worked. a little bit better and a little bit better. And towards the end of my time there, I found my now co-founder, this is the punchline, who was starting to, completely separate from me. He had built a technology that would read thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of content items and tell you what they're about and tell you what it meant to be an expert. And I'd been dreaming about something like this forever. And I became one of the first customers at any reasonable level of the original technology behind MarketMuse. It worked.
What year was this?
This was 2014.
Okay.
And so it worked. I mean, the first test plan I put in place, it was just blowing me away.
Were you like, oh my God, this is like awesome. So excited.
30 hours to 4 minutes, just to put it in perspective. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I left TechTarget a little bit. So in spring of 2015, I was working for a private equity firm, and my now co-founder reached out and said, hey, Jeff, we're really going to start taking this to market for real. Do you want to join as a late co-founder? Because you're really the only person that knows what the heck this does,
how it's done,
how it works, how it's done, right? From practice and from the manual labor. And I was like, so I could either stick with this private equity firm or I can go jump off a cliff. And obviously I jumped off the cliff. If you know me, I would jump off the cliff like 9 times out of 10. And now we are, the thought leader in the space of content strategy, doing it with technology. Amazing team. I've been able to transition to my new role as chief strategy officer, where I'm looking at competitive, like horizon scanning, but also I'm in charge of some of our new innovations, bringing them to productizing them. But before this, I ran the product team, marketing, engineering, data science. When you're a co-founder of a startup, you basically touched everything.
Do everything.
Your job is to not touch everything. That's like your transition and the maturity. So that's how we came to be. And, you said, what is AI powered content research, intelligence, and writing? It's the ability to break down your content lifecycle into pieces and try to figure out which of those workflows are manual, miserable, not optimized, not efficient, and figure out the ways that you can make those things more efficient. And so in detail, we look at research, planning, prioritization, briefing, the actual writing process, editing, publishing, and post-publish optimization, right? Or enhancement. And everything you do at all those stages can be aided by technology, by artificial intelligence, for every reason. So we try to touch each one of those workflows and build them into streams that can help people no matter where you want to start, no matter what your typical workflows are. And we turned all that into a software platform that can appeal to writers. It can appeal to research people, keyword research, search engine optimization, subject matter experts, editors, or content strategists, because we want all those people to work together, because that's how you really win. And the way we have, unfortunately, is teams where those teams work in silos. They have different KPI, and they do tremendously inefficient things. And so that's where MarketMuse came from.
Well, I can say from experience, there is so much inefficiency in that process. You're right. I mean, we have clients, we have some clients who I think, would be all on board with what you're talking about, and others who just might not get it, even though they are grossly inefficient, in a lot of these areas. So do you actually work with agencies like Fuoco? Would we partner with you to bring you on board to work with us with clients and automate what can be automated?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and what you said, it's so common. And, I would like to think about, we built a content marketing maturity model. You can actually look it up and you can see where your team is on that chart. But we absolutely, by the way, just to be blunt, it hasn't been easy to figure out how to work with agencies, but we just kind of cracked that nut over the past year. And what we were doing before made agencies have to pick and choose which client they were going to test it out on and go through that. And it had to be a shared thing because you were kind of paying per drink. And now what we've done is we made it easy for agencies to bring on their entire portfolio, their entire client list. And where we excel, our really unique differentiated value on the planning and strategy side, we can you can give any agency the ability to have a scalable strategic practice or planning practice. They used to just be focused on execution, or kind of teaching that you're going to do a yearly inventory or a yearly audit or quarterly audit, where what we can bring is on-demand auditing and inventorying, and quick strategic insights. So, for example, we can make it so that you could deliver a monthly or weekly, if you wanted, content plan, and it's not all that painful, and you can explain why. I always like to say for agencies, we're the why behind your content strategy, because a lot of times it's like you're doing this because the client told you you wanted to do it, or you're doing it because you got a hunch. We're giving you the why in the form of data, and that is easy to interpret. And that's a big difference. But yeah, we work with tons of agencies that have portfolios of sites, as well as clients, really just focused on, if you deliver content content strategy and not the actual content, regardless of where you sit in that, or you're just an SEO agency that provides recommendations or updates content. These are going to be solutions that really change the way you think about what can be done with technology. It's like a lot of things that people didn't realize you could do, we're doing. Like one of them, most important one is, or one of the most important ones is evaluating content quality and comprehensiveness objectively. So there is a standard we have built for content quality and comprehensiveness. So there's no reason to ever do that subjectively anymore, except as an addition or amplifier.
Why do you think people still are? Is it just because they don't know you exist, or they're a little bit scared? I don't know if you, maybe before you answer that question, I don't know if you've seen the latest Harvard Business Review, but there's a whole section dedicated to AI-powered marketing, and it talks a little bit about, it talks quite a bit about the challenges and the risks. And, people and organizations are inherently risk averse oftentimes. And, change is hard. So I'm kind of curious, your take on that, and is that at play? And then Absolutely. I'll have a second part to that question. I'll let you answer that, and I have a second part to that question.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I know what you're referencing, and it covers kind of a lot of different wings of marketing. Just like artificial intelligence is, how many branches of AI are there? Over 100, I believe. And it covers a lot of the different elements of marketing automation, chat bots and other types of.
I was looking, and like, you're not even on that list. Like, they don't even know about you.
Content strategy and content marketing. Natural language processing is the first branch level of where we work, and that's in topic modeling. So it's to say, if I were an expert on a topic, what would that mean? So that basically says, if I'm going to write an article or build a website that covers content marketing, for example, or content strategy, and it doesn't talk about buyer personas, and it doesn't talk about target audiences, it's not all that expert driven. So we can basically tell you whether, if you're going to cover a particular topic, you also need other coverage of these other things to be legit, right? And it's kind of like I always like to use a recipe example. If you're going to make beer and you don't use water, it's not going to taste very good, right? And so those are some obvious ones, but it works with topic modeling. It works with that. The other angle is where, because we can analyze text and analyze a lot of content and tell you what it's about, we can also do on-demand gap analyses and things like that. The other new frontier for us is generation. So that's where we can actually generate content or build outlines. So we build outlines for writers on the fly.
Okay, help me understand that a little bit. So instead of me sitting down and going, okay, I think here's my outline, your machine learning is going to do that for you, and it's going to say, here's sort of where to focus your efforts.
Absolutely. So we can basically tell you on the fly our content brief offering. By the way, our first content briefs were made manually. 7 years ago. We were delivering them at scale, partially assisted by our technology, but now we've automated those. So you can actually go in, and we have a self-serve model. You can go in and build your own brief, and we can basically tell you who should this content be for, what intents, what are some title considerations or headline considerations, things that are like table stakes, but also to differentiate. And that's one reason why MarketMuse is unique. We also can give you subheaders and sections to consider. And then all the topics you want to consider. So we're basically trying to give you, and then internal and external link recommendations. So whatever, as you're writing, you can build out this outline so your writer gets a kind of a candidate or inspirational meets minimum. And it puts your writer, if they're outsourced or inside the team, it gives them a standard source of truth, basically, so that they're never going to write something that completely is off the reservation. Then you get it and you're like, no, this is not what I asked for. So it's going to be at least this base outline, and then they can add their own expertise and add their own creativity, build it into a story, build their voice into a story. And that's wonderful. We also do, though, take it one step further and build drafts. We build draft content.
What? Are you trying to put us out of business over
Absolutely here? Not. Absolutely not. So we're building it so that you can also have that same experience and use that as inspiration of how one might consider it, and then take that and build quicker and quicker and quicker. I mean, we have teams that are able to put out, 5x, and they're happy with the outcomes of the content. And that's where there's a lot of things that you can work on. But the coolest part about it is, and this is not even covered in this piece that you're referencing, is this is where you start. When you start here, what is your current content efficiency? How many content items do you create every N and publish? How many do you update or optimize, right? How frequently are those successful, right? If the team can't answer that, that's issue one. If they do, it's probably about 10 to 15%. So let's just say it's 10%. That means your average cost of content is 10x what you think it is. Okay, that's the true cost of failing content. It's that you're publishing 10 articles to get one to work. So you're actually spending 10x. What if you could turn that into 40 or 50% success rates? That's what our planning and prioritization solution does. It takes teams that are operating at 10% efficiency to 40 and also speeds them up at the same time. And so we've got these kind of multiple wheels rolling. So a team that's not ready to adopt generation in their workflow, totally understand it. That's out here in left field. That's a little scary, right? Mm-hmm. You may want to bring briefs in and build your briefs for your writers, and at the same time improve your prioritization so that more of your at-bats turn into hits. When you do that, everybody's happy. And those are the types of wins we get. And then you kind of work down the funnel. But the goal is to make subject matter experts and editors and writers the most valuable assets on a team. And that's what we feel we do with these add-ons. And it make it so that writers don't have to do the stuff they don't want to do. No, ask an editorial lead if they want to do keyword research manually. Find me that person. Nobody wants to do that. They've spent 20 years working in a field to learn, be a subject matter expert, to be a great writer. Writers want to write. Writers want to add their subjectivity, to add their expertise to things, and be creative. And what the technology world has done, I feel, until the last few years in this specific space, is kind of beat down their creativity. And what I'm trying to do with artificial intelligence is actually give them more space to be creative. And I feel like when we embrace that and harness that, these teams are crushing it. I mean, and they are. It's fun.
That's awesome. So. Are you allowed to talk about that a little bit more when you say they're crushing it? Like, do you have
oh yeah,
one example in particular, that folks would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, or I can go look at their content and it all becomes crystal clear.
On our site, we've got piles of case studies. I mean, it's just I'm so I'm so grateful that a lot of people let us do it. We also had a customer conference last month with over 1,000 of our customers.
Oh, wow.
Were at the conference. We had hands-on workshops from some of our clients that where they showed how they've been successful. And how cool is that?
That's awesome.
They want to tell everyone, but Motley Fool is a great example of one. We work with a ton of, you can go check out some other ones, cool examples where people are really able to, even if they're only using the most basic use case for MarketMuse is
Is that the brief?
Optimizing existing content.
Okay.
You're looking at a page.
So tell me what that means.
You're looking at a page and MarketMuse gives you advice as to ways you could have made it more written from the lens of that which an expert would have written. So an example is, we record this podcast. It's about content strategy, right? You take the transcript, you can feed it into MarketMuse. It says we don't talk about buyer personas for some reason. So you can add your own, you can add a section.
Except for now, you just did.
I know, I just did. I blew it. So let's just say so you can do that with your existing content. You can do that with drafts to basically give you a sense of how to make it better from a lens of an expert. You also then can compare it against your competitors to say, what is everyone doing that's table stakes? If I'm going to talk about how do you get bees out of your garage, and I don't talk about, checking the rafters, I don't know. But you can basically, it can tell you, and by the way, it will give you.
Have you had bees in your garage?
No, I didn't. I just was looking at a brief that a client recently wrote, and it made me laugh because it was how to get bees out of your garage.
Oh, I had this friend though. Her house was infested with bees, and like this whole the rafters. Yeah, they were like they had made this whole crazy colony. Anyway,
no, you no matter what level of specificity, and we also will build out and tell you the intent behind great content on that. So is it early stage awareness? Is it comparison? Is it transactional? And so the biggest gaffe in marketing today and writing content is you think it's one page, one word, one page. That's not worked for over a decade. And the only people that still tell you that they're like affiliate touts that aren't plugged into what it means to run a business anymore. And what you really need is coverage across the entire buyer journey or patient journey, or you need to cover post-purchase troubleshooting, post-purchase advocacy, and really give yourself full coverage on the topic. You can also give it flavors for industry, for level of expertise. And so what we're trying to give you is a sense of what it would mean to be an expert, but also like you got to cover all the variants and all the intents that match what a typical buy cycle would. And with artificial intelligence, you're giving yourself the ability to understand a concept like never before. You're not just writing the word and it shows you other words that have the same word in it, which is what has stood for keyword research for a really long time,
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Okay, so, some people might market themselves as AI powered, fill in the blank, because they've done the keyword research. And that's like the buzzword, and that's, but it sounds like you actually are AI powered.
Oh yeah.
So do you?
I love this question. This is a great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are there the posers out there?
Oh yeah, there's posers.
And how do you catch them? And I'm just
that's a good question.
Curious. Okay. Is this how you ended up positioning your own company?
I love it.
You leverage your own tools. Yeah.
We build our own. Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's a great question. And so what I'll say is people are confused at what artificial intelligence is. So a lot of the judgmental sense is because they don't really understand what artificial intelligence is. There's still people that don't really understand. They think it means robots are doing something, right?
Right.
They don't, they understand some branches of artificial intelligence, but not that all of them are under one umbrella, right? But there's still a lot of naysayers out there that will say that's not real AI. Well, there are components of people say that AI powered that aren't actually doing anything related to artificial intelligence, but a lot of them are, and the naysayers are inappropriately dogging them. But think about computer vision, for example, which is being able to assess what an image is all right, with the computer in various applications. It's all about the applications and what's behind them. The thing that is what I would call poser today. Oh, poser is such a good word.
It's a great word.
Such a good word. The thing that's sort of posery, I'm not going to call anybody out.
Posery.
Posery, right?
That's a new word.
Is going to be so we have our own data science organization. We have our own office for our data science team, the M4 lab in Montreal. We built everything ourselves because that's a decision we made as a business very early on. We want to be as data independent as we can. That's why we have the largest keyword database that exists. We have the largest vault of data that relates to this of any company. We also built our own natural language generation platform. It's not OpenAI. OpenAI is our leading competitor for natural language generation.
Okay.
They built a model called GPT-3, which is very popular in generation. They also have a single reseller right to Microsoft. So yes, going up against Elon Musk and Microsoft. Really good idea, Jeff. But the key on the thing that I would say isn't necessarily artificial intelligence. You may be powered by it, but that's like saying that you built a car because you drive it, right? Or you built a car because you're the Uber. That's the driver where someone else rides in it. So what we're seeing a lot with these technology companies is they're buying reseller rights or API access to commercially available data sets or machine learned or trained language models. In our field is trained language models. So a lot of software that's out there that will process data, they may put a beautiful interface on it that solves a user problem. But so they are effectively enabling users with an AI solution, but they didn't build it. So the risks of that are what happens if the provider of that data changes? What happens if the reseller rights change? Well, then this solution that you bought is not exactly what you thought it was. Whereas if the company has actually built it, then all the innovation is going to get to you, where there's no middle person. And that's really the big difference that we're seeing. So it's like the equivalent of, if you want to go use Google's NLU, natural language understanding API, you can go pay for a code and build and use it. It costs a few bucks at the most, right? And that doesn't make you an artificial intelligence expert. It just means you know how to use software. It's like saying that you're a grammar and linguistics expert because you use Grammarly. And that's not true. And so that's basically
what's coming to my mind as an analogy, maybe for marketers too, and tell me if this is completely wrong and dumb, but it's like buying access to a database, a list of names, right? It's only as good as, a lot of people just resell the same data, but then some people actually have their own proprietary database and they are doing their own thing to keep that fresh. And, is there an analogy there at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of great ones, and you can provide a lot of value, right? You can provide a lot of value by looking at data and interpreting it, and then delivering a creative solution, and that's great. I mean, you can be a beautiful, useful solution provider, and that takes a large database, and you can even apply artificial intelligence practices or machine learning practices to someone else's data. And that can be very valuable too. A great example of that is there's a company called Madkudu, Madkudu. And if you're not familiar with them, you should be. They're amazing. They're a predictive lead scoring application. And so they'd be very relevant for the Harvard Business Review article. They can grab all of your CRM data and even open database data and build out models that look at demographic data, but also look at user behaviors on your site. And you can combine them to build models that predict how various characteristics, predictable quality of that lead. It's also dramatically deadly accurate.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so it can actually automate and give you an aggregated lead score. I've been trying to do lead score for my entire career. I delivered millions of leads in my career, right? And didn't think, I always thought that was something someone could do. I always thought it was going to be a if, then, or grade each segment component. So you get a lead that's got these components of this, these components of this, these. And the true test of artificial intelligence from a training model perspective is when it tells you something that you wouldn't have guessed with your rule-based architecture. Okay, so think about that, right? It told me that, this person from this company was actually a good lead. But if I had used my rule architecture, it would have told me it was a bad lead. Once it does that, and that is reliable, you've eclipsed what you could have done with your own brain. And that's a great example. That's not their data. They built a technology that allows you to predict better than you could on your own. And so that's great. I don't mind that case. The cases where you're not adding anything is where it's like, is that really, this is something you can buy off of the shelf. You're effectively a reseller, and that's a little bit different. So, yeah.
Right. That's awesome.
Mad Kudu, super awesome company.
I'm going to check it out. We're going to include that in the show notes too for people. This is great. This is opening up whole new worlds, and my mind is just like racing right now. So let me ask a very technical question. Sure. Back to that HBR article. They frame up, I'm going to assume this is accurate and true, the 4 kinds of marketing AI. And they talk about, it's kind of got 4 quadrants, standalone task automation apps, standalone machine learning apps, integrated task automation apps, and integrated machine learning apps. I feel like that's exactly what you've been talking about just now. Is that where would MarketMuse kind of fit into there? And do you think that that's an accurate and, kind of good way to look at it?
I think it is. And the challenge being that there are hybrids and things where the models used to automate tasks were created with components of machine learning components. And what I like to, my background's in product management. So I always like to look at these from the level of product market maturity. That's the key, I believe, to understanding AI and its likelihood of yielding value for your business. First of all, if you're familiar with Paul Reutzer from the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, one of his key things is pick something that's relatively mature in your org for a workflow and run a pilot. Best way to get started. Okay, just put that aside.
We're going to put that in the show notes too.
Yeah, for sure. And if you haven't looked at the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, go check it out. I have a course on natural language generation that you can grab too.
Awesome.
And so that's my key. But I think it's not necessarily about, is it a standalone application or is it integrated behind the scenes or integrated in a way that you're, as a user, you understand. It's about how mature that workflow is. And how understood it is. And the example I always like to use for us is the first time you ever used a spell checker, it probably was alien and it seemed like it couldn't possibly work. And it kind of was okay. But now spell checkers are just ingrained. Like when would you ever write something that didn't have a spell checker on it, right? And then we went through the same thing with grammar and with tone of voice. The first time you saw that, it was kind of clunky and it was like, is this ever really going to work? Now it's like, oh my gosh, like I can almost do accept all on all of these, right?
Except for autocorrect somehow never seems to get it right.
For some reason, autocorrect thinks that I always want fir trees, FIR, and I never have ever wanted anything that was ever spelled FIR when I write for. Okay, that's an example of the other side of it. But it's also like Alexa, right? Or Amazon. Like when you first used that, it was terrible. It was terrible. Now it gets right. It gets it right most of the time.
Listen, Siri is much more reliable than Alexa for me. And I think it's because I have Siri on my iPhone. So she's heard my voice a lot more. Just saying.
I mean, my kids can control the Alexa, and they're 2.5 and 4.5, and that blows my mind. They're like, Alexa, play Super Wings. Play Super Wings. Alexa, play Super Wings. And it just does, right? And those, so really it's about the maturity level. So now think about the ones I was just talking about, right? How comfortable are you that there's technology that can tell you how to have written something as if you were an expert, right? When we first started, no one was comfortable with that. Now, most people are. Most people are cool with something giving them recommendations for enhancement and optimization. Are you comfortable getting draft content written yet? Nope. Nobody is. Nobody is. Okay.
That was going to be my next question. Keep going.
No, the first versions of what we delivered was in Google Docs, and they were like finished content, right? And people would look at them and they're like, nope. Like they would immediately, your brain doesn't work. Like people's brains are human brains. They don't do well with unnatural experiences. They don't do well with net new, novel, immature experiences. So they looked at that, and their first thought was, I need to judge this to see if it's good or bad. Because that's what people do. When you land on a brand new website you've never seen before, you judge whether it's good very quickly, and you leave, you decide. Over 80%, I think, is the mark of that metric, where you decide whether a new site you've never been to is hit or miss within the first 2 seconds or something like that. It was a study done by Content Science by Colleen Jones. She does it every year. It gets worse and worse every year because we become more judgmental every year. So if you read this content, you immediately judge it. You're not naturally thinking that you should use this to enhance and speed up your content creation workflow. That's not what you're thinking. You're thinking, judge it. And so like over time, that's basically the journey for every workflow that uses AI. Predictive lead scoring, right? Great example. Maybe you look at it and you're like, oh no, this is stupid because it surfaced this lead that I don't even think we sell to this demo, right?
You're like, well, you should.
But maybe you should. And here's why. And here's the model as it was trained. And so that's the journey everyone goes on. They're judging good or bad. And then all of a sudden it flows and flows and flows. And then you just make all
of a sudden there's like a shift.
You just think, oh, wow, it actually works better than I or a team of my making or building could possibly do. And then you change. And that's the experience. And that's self-driving cars, great example, right? Still on the edge, right? You never, hey, this isn't ever going to work. Oh, what about this? What about that? Obviously, you have ethical implications in all of these. Ethics in AI, another topic for another day, I think. But think about it, right? When it first came out, not comfortable, not comfortable, not comfortable, not comfortable. Are you going to be comfortable probably 3 years from now with it? Probably. Why? Right? Enough data is provided, it gets better. There's, there's less, there's percentage of failure rates. There are ethics discussions. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can be okay with this. And, computer vision is a great example. CAPTCHAs, right? You go into all these, you can get into every example, but all of them go through this maturity model.
It really makes me think of two things. One, yesterday I follow Stoic on Twitter or whatever. And it was like, you don't have to judge. You don't have to, but our natural inclination as humans is we think we have to have an opinion about something, even if we don't have enough information to actually have one yet. And that it's actually okay not to judge until you know more. So that was number one. It made me think of, and this is a great example. And then number two, since I'm in healthcare marketing, right? And healthcare, as you probably well know, is notoriously risk averse, slower to adopt new technologies and emerging technologies. And there's a ton of conversation out there in healthcare about, I think there's a fear factor around artificial intelligence and machine learning. And mostly it is, they're going to take my job away. That's going to take my job away. I won't have a job. But the reality is to your point, no, it's just going to allow for you up to do the job you actually have the training to do, rather than all this, kind of stuff. Like my reaction earlier, what are you trying to put us out of a job? Like, no, we're trying to help you be better at what you're really good at. Yeah.
Well, in healthcare specifically, there's reasons to be concerned. And I work extensively in healthcare, whether pharma, life sciences, or traditional, marketing doctors, marketing hospitals, as well as, drugs and such. There is reason to, because abuse of generation technology could impact one's life. I mean, that is absolutely and positively a risk. Generated content is not fact checked by default. So proper nouns, numbers, people's names, things like that, are not guaranteed to be right. And that is where the power is in the user, right? Though your business is responsible for words you put on the page, just like if it was an outsourced writer. Would you ever take something in healthcare from an outsourced professional and not have it proofed, not have it fact checked? No. Why would you do it with AI? Well, and so it's the same logic path, but what it can do, it can tell you unbranded patient journey research. I need awareness. I need unknown need aware. I need known need aware. I need pre-purchase comparison. I need treatment diagnosis comparison. I need post-purchase adherence content. So it can actually go through that journey and tell you what intent you're targeting. Oh yeah, and by the way, we have two persona. We're shooting for patients here. We got healthcare professionals over here. It's two completely different content strategies. And so it can actually build out models that can build the right thing for a completely novice, person who just has a particular ailment versus someone who's trying to make the decision between drug A and drug B, which are two completely different things, but they get smushed together in traditional keyword research. And that's why healthcare marketers have it so bad, because it's so glommed together. You've got to separate a lot of these things. And so AI can help those types of really tough things and make healthcare marketers smarter. Mike Sweeney, Right Source Marketing, is a great example of someone who does this well. And I feel like really gets it. So
cool. Yeah. Well, how do we help more people get there?
It's a great question.
Well, you had a great suggestion. Do a pilot, right? Yeah. Just do a pilot. And that probably like converts people to believers, pretty quickly for you.
Yeah, I think it's about knowing your workflow. The way that I like to do it at the strategic end is really with that efficiency discussion. How much content are we making? How much content are we updating and optimizing? How frequently are we doing inventories and audits? First of all, inventories and audits should be an always on thing. And then of the stuff we publish, how frequently are we successful? And are we happy with that? Are we happy with how much we're getting out the door? And is there stuff that just keeps dragging on? How are we able to do these things surgically, as far as like what happens if something changes in the market? Does it throw our entire plan out the window? So you're getting into these kinds of conversations, and do you really know the true cost of content? Do you have risks? Every plan falls into one of four categories in most cases. You got quick wins. What are the things that I could write today that will have the biggest impact on the business, or update today? I might have topics like I want to own this topic. That might be more of my goal-based. Risks, where I've got competitors breathing down my neck, or I've got a page. This is where everybody gets really red in the face. I've got a page that gets far too high of a percentage of my traffic on my site. Because, and I don't know how to support that. I'm like afraid to touch it, and I don't know what to do about it, but I know it's a huge risk to my business, because what if that gets cut in half? What do I do? I mean, those are the types of things that we run into. It's like, no matter where you are, the way you change is to know why you plan today, what your efficiencies are, and what maybe you'd like them to be. And then pick one workflow to improve, or like do the easy one, go update 5 articles.
Okay, talk to me about that, because I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer, but like so many clients don't do it, or they don't want you to focus there.
Yeah.
Talk about why that's like the easiest place to start and the best place.
Updating existing content for finding multiple reasons to update. Is it out of date? Do you have gaps? And a few gaps. One would be based on comprehensiveness. It wasn't as good as it should have been. The other one is a fun one. This is an easy one to train a client.
Drum roll.
This is the client. It's called intent mismatch.
Intent mismatch.
Everyone understands this.
Oh
Here's what it is.
I'm learning so much from you today, Jeff.
Here's the one. Right?
Okay.
You have a page. It ranks for something. The page doesn't follow through on that promise. Every brand understands they do not want that to happen. So you've got a page. It's about desk lamps. And when someone searches for how do you screw in a light bulb, they get to your desk lamp page. It doesn't tell them how to screw in the light bulb. They get to your brand. Their first experience with your brand is disappointment. That page needs to be updated to show how to screw in a light bulb, or point to a link to a page that tells you how to screw in a light bulb. Intent mismatch is the easiest way to sell an executive on updating existing content, because it's people who are going to your site and leaving unsatisfied. And that's the thing that everyone who works at your company in executive leadership should never want to happen. It's like walking in the front door of a Porsche dealership and there's no cars. And no one ever want that. Yes.
And is the frustration there mostly they can't figure out why it's happening in the first place, or they know why it's happening, but they don't know how to address it? Or what do you find?
I have a need. I found this page that for one reason or another, I can get into all the reasons why this happens. It doesn't answer my specific need today. And so I leave and I go find a competitor or someone else who will.
That does tell me that. Maybe it's another desk lamp, but they have a payoff to
actually specifically answer this question.
Light bulb.
And, but the other version is where your page, when you landed on it, isn't satisfactorily exhibiting expertise. So another case is where you can show someone's journey. They searched for this term and they landed on this page. Hey, are you comfortable that this page represents our entire team's expertise? No? All right, let's fix it. Let's make it so that it does exhibit our expertise, because no one wants to. And that's why I think a lot of, SEOs of the past are really losing their cachet. It's because they, for a long time, have been telling people to build pages that the entire team aren't proud of. And we've got to build pages that do both. It makes everybody proud, because let's say you do win. Hey, we got a great ranking. And then the page stinks, right? Oh, wonderful. We're ranking number 10 for 3 for this. And then someone gets to the page and it doesn't satisfactorily represent my business's expertise. Well, now, did we just do something good or bad? Well, if we don't update that page, we're in trouble. And because we're just not doing right by our business. And so optimizing existing content for intent mismatch or low quality or thin content are two of the easiest workflows to introduce to a company who hasn't historically been comfortable with any of these workflows.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And MarketMuse tells you exactly what pages to update, tells you the intents to focus on that are mismatched. It gives you all this data. So this
is MarketMuse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is one piece of MarketMuse.
One piece of MarketMuse is you can go in, tell you the top 5 pages you should optimize today to have the biggest business impact. It can also then build the outlines for new pages you want to create, tell you how to optimize the existing ones, tell you where you got missing internal links. Mm-hmm. What questions should you answer elegantly in this piece? Like really building out that so that you don't have to do that research, and it's all there and you can just use what you got in your brain to amplify and accelerate.
That's awesome. Okay, say I want to start working with you tomorrow, which I do.
Mhm.
What do I need? What do I need to do? Talk to me about, how folks can find you, get engaged with MarketMuse,
Sure.
all the
Um,
good things. How do they reach you?
I'm on Twitter, Jeffrey_Coyle. LinkedIn, I respond to everything, Jeff@marketmuse.com. We have self-service offerings you can just buy on the site if you don't want to talk to anybody. If you are an agency or portfolio owner or a mid-market enterprise, which is what our historical focus, but we do now have walk in the door for one person, solopreneurs and single person practices. We have self-serve, but yeah, shoot a form in, shoot a note to me specifically, tell me what the details of the agency are, or whomever, and build out some examples and make it make sense. Really just, our mission is to, I like to say it's to set the standard for content quality. That's the actual party line. But I like to say
That's great. I love
I like
that.
to say it's to rid the world of bad content. So that's the shadow mission, is to rid the world of bad content. I can get behind both of those. So, but yeah, please give me a shout at Jeff@marketmuse.com or on Twitter.
Awesome. And then you're out there on the speaking circuit, podcasts. Tell us maybe a few places that you're maybe going to be, or even some of your favorite places to go for inspiration or podcasts you listen to, any or all of those things.
Awesome. Well, I mentioned a few already.
Yes. Thank you for that.
So we have a content strategy webinar series that's integrated into our community called the Content Strategy Collective. If you shoot me a note, we can get you an invite to that community. We have 2 webinars per month in that community that really focus on specific content strategies. Some of the ones I'm looking forward to, actually traveling again in this world. I'll be at PubCon in Miami in the beginning of August. Also, I'm a big advocate of the Rhodium community of entrepreneurs. Go check that out on Facebook. They also have
Rhodium.
RHO, like the metal, RHODIUM.
Got it.
Go check them out on Facebook. They also have an event in September that I will be at and speaking. And then Content Marketing World, which back in Cleveland live. If you haven't booked that, please do. I will be there.
I've never been to Cleveland.
I'll be. It's cooler than people think.
That's what I've heard.
I like it a lot.
So
I surprisingly like it a lot.
When is that?
I want to say it's the last days of September, fading into the first part of October. But yeah, I'll be rocking orange sunglasses on stage like everybody else there. So yeah, come on down to that. It'll be a good old time.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I've learned so much today. I really appreciate you being a guest on How It's Done. That really wraps it up for today, unless you have something else you want to add or share, anything we have failed to cover today, Jeff. Otherwise.
No, I just, I think those are great examples, and go check out our blog as well, which has a lot of content strategy concepts.
Share that. That's, what's your blog address?
blogs.marketmuse.com or blog.marketmuse.com. Both work.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much. Our guest today has been Jeff Coyle, who is co-founder and chief strategy officer of MarketMuse, which offers AI-powered content research, intelligence, and writing. Thanks a lot, Jeff.